Jak and Daxter as a franchise is a staple in my life and has stuck with me tightly ever since I was around the age of 5. Now I'm 20 and still enjoying the games as much as I did all that time ago. Though the community isn't huge, it's a damn good one, so I thought I'd try and make a video based on my feelings and perspective of all 3 main games of the trilogy. Starting with, which is in my opinion, the most special installment in many ways, Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. So, let's begin, shall we? The Precursor Legacy is a completely unique gem to me. It encompasses a magnificent sense of freedom, curiosity, and adventure throughout its total of 3 hub areas, and rightly so given its place as the first true open-world game, with technically 0 loading times as the immersive cherry on top. And of course, alongside this is Jak's signature moveset, which has a beautiful synchronicity with the environments they're used in. There have been a painfully small amount of games I've played with a similar satisfaction and fluidity throughout the years I've spent playing video games total. Each area does a great job in captivating its respective atmosphere, like Forbidden Jungle for example, with its greenery and trees that are circled around an even taller, mysterious set of precursor ruins that trail deep beneath the jungle itself, which is your first real step into the unknowns of this world. As for the soundtrack, people like to argue that it isn't incredibly memorable compared to a lot of other games, which of course it isn't, but I think it serves its purpose with flying colours, mostly acting as a brilliant mix of ambient beats suited to the current area you're in, as compared to the boss fight music which generally has much more of a boom and melodical feel to it. Either way, it adds massively onto that previously mentioned environmental immersion. I'll play a few of my personal favourite soundtracks from the game for you, just in case your memory needs to be refreshed. Before we get into the real meaty part of Jak 1, I just wanted to dedicate a small portion of this video to the visuals that accompany this game. For a 2001 release, Jak absolutely blows almost every other game released in the same time period out of the water when it comes to visuals. With a dynamic day and night cycle that bring gorgeous skies or the complete openness of the entire explorable world, it all comes together and brings the game to life. And albeit a still pretty linear game, it's barely even noticeable due to these factors, making it very easy to get lost in the world. The designs of each and every level bring something new to the table, combined with the implementation of precursor architecture in a lot of those places. All of this makes for a very organic and intriguing setting in every place you end up visiting.
I have spent my life searching for the answers that my father and my father's fathers failed to find. Who were the precursors? Why did they create the vast monoliths that litter our planet? How did they harness
The world of Jak and Daxter is a world surrounded in mysterious origin, and the Precursor Legacy acts as a way to introduce this concept through none other than Samos, the Sage of Green Eco, who begins the sequence by asking rhetorical questions about creation itself, and how almost nothing is known about it apart from the belief of godlike beings known as, you guessed it, precursors. Our gaze is shifted onto a blonde, elvish lad and his friend Daxter as they travel by sea to Misty Island. Samos continues his monologue about how Jak is the key to this mystery, but simply doesn't acknowledge or care about what Samos has to say to him. Upon arriving at the island, Daxter reminds Jak that they probably shouldn't have come here as per Samos's words, which is kind of ironic given his character, but they continue forward anyway. They encounter a meeting of sorts between the big bads of the game, Goll and Maya, the brother-sister duo who have been corrupted by Dark Eco through assumingly a lot of experiments resulting in prolonged exposure. They have a submissive army of lurkers at hand and task them with scavenging the lands of Eco and Precursor artifacts. For now, this is all the plot we're given regarding these two. Jack and Daxter then move to avoid being uncovered and find themselves around a deep pool of Dark Eco, with Daxter fondling a Precursor artifact of sorts, talking about how it's just a bunch of useless shit, but he throws the artifact to Jack, which then immediately reacts to his touch and activates. In the midst of this, a lurker appears out of nowhere and charges toward the duo, with Jack hurtling the object at it, causing an explosion, which launches Daxter back into the pool of Dark Eco. Jack's eyes dart around to find any semblance of his friend, for a second thinking he was dead, but Daxter is then propelled out of the pool, transformed into a rodent. Yes, that's right, a rat. Basically known as an ottsel, but we don't know that yet. Cue Daxter having a crisis and Jack seemingly not giving a single fuck. Back at Samos' hut in Sandover Village, Samos explains to Daxter nothing. He just says that yes, he was touched by Dark Eco, but doesn't continue to explain why he wasn't vaporized immediately. Anyway, the important part here is that Goll is the only man he knows of who has enough experience with Dark Eco to have any chance in returning him back into his human form. Now, for the rest of the game.
None of the three sages that maintain the other
Now it's time for an overview of each of the 3 hub areas, boasting their own unique themes and sub-themes, none of which are particularly unique by modern standards, but are executed so damn well in atmosphere and design that you don't get that sense of unoriginality you might get playing the game almost 20 years later. Not that there was a lot of the same back in 2001, but I'm just comparing it to current day. We'll of course start with Sandover Village, a very small and compact place that plays its role as Jack's bubbly hometown, and is the first place in the game you'll find a handful of interactable locals with their own unique character for small quests. You can of course freely acquire these power cells without interacting with any of them though. Sandover Village is almost like a starting playground for Jack to roam around in, acting as a medium to practice basic platforming and getting acquainted with features seen throughout the rest of the game, like collecting Precursor orbs, talking and trading with the local oracle.
Give me your orbs, boy, or I will consume you.
And collecting scalpflies, basically serving as a follow-up to Geyser Rock in a way. Each hub area has a total of 2 to 3 sub-areas surrounding it, and here you'll find 3 paths that lead to Sentinel Beach, Misty Island as well as Forbidden Jungle. The game's first intended big boy areas for Jack to play around in. I'll start with Sentinel Beach as it's definitely one of my lesser favourite areas in the game in terms of overall design. It's just a simple beach themed area complete with some ruins and upper grassy plains with some of the simplest power cells in the game. Not that cells are generally very difficult to get, but there are definitely some standout ones found throughout. Here, like in Geyser Rock, you can also find the remains of Precursor robots buried within the mountains nearby, the ones that are implied to have created the world itself. Details like this are always a treat and a great way for subtle world building, which is a very strong theme throughout Jak 1. Our next area is Forbidden Jungle, east of Samos' hut, which I glossed over a little earlier. I always had fond memories of this area because of the huge Precursor temple that is erupting from the center of the jungle. Naughty Dog really knew how to trigger the curiosity receptors in my child brain. The platforming here sees a slight increase in complexity throughout the jungle's gap bridges, artificial traps, and unique enemies. Here you'll also get to use the power of Blue Eco in order to both open a Precursor door, as well as reform a long destroyed Precursor bridge, which leads directly to the temple that you have to ascend via Blue Eco activated platforms to the very top. And upon doing so you are greeted with something magnificent. And no, I don't mean the power cell, I mean the first view of the world you have from a higher point in world space. You'll realize that you can actually see future areas in the distance, where the true vastness and open-ended nature of this world is first realized in you, the player. Within this temple, you'll activate the Blue Eco mainframe to enable sealed Blue Eco vents across the world, as well as fight a Dark Eco consumed plant, which upon defeat will also kill the hostile plant life found throughout the jungle previously, which I always thought was a nice bit of world evolution, so to speak. Once both of these areas have been explored, you'll decide to either travel through the Fire Canyon to reach Rock Village, or take the fisherman's boat to go to the lurker-riddled Misty Island. But for now, let's keep it linear, because generally I would play these first 2 areas and come back to Misty Island later, so let's do it that way. Fire Canyon will take you straight to Rock Village, which you'll see has a very stark change in feel with its dingy, wet atmosphere. You'd activate the teleport gate where a cutscene will play where Samos will basically tell you to fuck off and have a look around. Descending the platforms outside of the Blue Sage's hut will greet you once again with a couple of choices. Either cross the bridge to your right, or go left toward the Precursor Basin, an area that is completely zoomer oriented and is basically just a big zoomer playground. Naturally, you'd probably go to the geologist first, who will tell you to go gather all the blind red foxes back into their burrowing holes, kind of nudging you toward this part of the village anyway. I mostly had a lot of love for this place, except for that one mission where you have to chase all of those goddamn flying lurkers. That shit took me hours as a kid originally, and I never want to go through such torment again. But these days, obviously, I find it to be a tad easier, but still very, very tedious nonetheless. Otherwise, the rest of the challenges here, like the purple and blue ring power cells, are a lot of fun in my opinion, and help you to further familiarize yourself with the zoomer controls. Leaving this area will leave you with a single choice, which is to cross the bridge to the village center, where you'll find the warrior, who will basically bitch about his crumbling ego due to the huge Precursor armor-wearing lurker that's terrorizing the village. His main purpose, however, is to rob you of 90 Precursor orbs like literally every other being in this game, so that he decides to move some planks for you, giving you access to Boggy Swamp. But he also gives us context about the Blue Sage and how he had developed a machine powered by Blue Eco in order to lift the boulder placed there by Claw, the aforementioned lurker. However, he lacked the power cells to do so. He also mentioned that the Blue Sage had simply vanished, which is something I forgot to mention earlier during the cutscene that played. The Blue Sage's hut was visibly raided in the earlier cutscene, implying that he had been kidnapped. The person to the left of the warrior is some guy in a barrel who lost a bet and wants you to go win his way out of it in Precursor Basin, which is completely lacking in importance, so let's move on. Before Boggy Swamp, let's talk about the lost Precursor City, which isn't necessarily a city, it's just some strange Precursor facility of some kind that is completely submerged under the ocean. This place consists entirely of puzzle-based power cells, some simple and some slightly more complex, like the lighting platform puzzle, which may seem simple at first, but as a kid I seemed to have a hell of a lot of trouble initially trying to get this thing done. So there are two levels to this area, the lower one leading you to the Precursor Submerger, which once activated by all the blue ecospheres will take you to where you entered from and act as a fast travel back to that point of the complex if you do need to go back. Platforming past this will take you down yet another slide to a pool of rising dark eco, which you'll have to escape through a careful series of platforming. The blue eco boost vent at the end will take you all the way back up to the first level for more uncompleted exploration. This place is very short-lived, but is accompanied by some fun gameplay sequences, like the slides you use to descend through the facility, which are the only reason this place is even worth coming to for fuck saving the world. There are also some very strange unique enemy types here too. Weird place. The final area present in Rock Village is Boggy Swamp, which I don't have a whole lot to say about because I never particularly enjoyed being here, but that's not to say it doesn't have some good platforming or cells in general. This place is a swamp overturned by the grossness of nature with black tar pits, spikes and rats scattered throughout. The main objective here is to destroy the lurker balloon tethers, each existing in an attempt to unearth an intact arm of a Precursor robot, in order to falter Gollum's currently unmentioned plan to create their own mismatched Precursor robot. You're being drip-fed more world building here, as it subtly hints towards the game's climax. Yellow Eco also makes its first appearance here, which grants you the ability to create explosive fireballs, being used throughout the majority of the swamp. Boggy Swamp is also home to easily the most infuriating power cell in the game, this being Boggy Billy's rat problem. This challenge felt almost impossible to my 6-year-old hands and brain, and even now it's easy to cut close and fuck up. If I were to attempt to get all 101 power cells, I would always leave this mission to last. Now at this point you should have 42 or more power cells, which will allow you to activate the Blue Eco levitation machine, giving you the opportunity to fight Claw and save the village from further destruction. But this is the second boss fight next to the Dark Eco plant mass back in the Precursor Temple, this one being significantly more difficult, but only during the third phase, where the speed at which Claw shoots boulders is incredibly fast and forces you to be at your peak performance in platforming, a great boss with a great soundtrack. Now all that is left for you to do is take the zoomer through the mountain pass to yet another badass soundtrack, which was always a hell of a lot of fun beating these annoying motherfuckers at their own game. And the goal here is to keep the pass from being completely destroyed and move on to Volcano Crater, the final hub area in the game and a place ripe with nostalgia. Once again, and for one final time, activate the teleport gate. The cutscene that plays here is the first time Gollum and Maya show themselves in front of the cast, with Samos blatantly struggling to recognize Gollum due to the intense physical changes he has undergone, and proceed to vaguely explain the plans they have for their Precursor robot, and also brag that they have mastered the study of Dark Eco, and plan to pry open the Dark Eco silos. The duo also admit to having kidnapped the sages for their powers, keeping them in their citadel, as well as having some plans for our poor old boy Samos. Gollum and Maya vanish as quickly as they appeared, and you are yet again tasked with rounding up more cells, this time to improve the Zoomer's heat shield for further traversal. Volcano Crater is different from the other hub areas, in the sense that the only thing it harbors is the Red Sage's hut itself, surrounded by lava and railway tracks that Jack is supposed to use as a method to get around, but because they're just so goddamn slow, you're much better off taking your chances as well as having fun jumping across the tracks erratically to get where you need to. Anyway, Volcanic Crater is home to both Snowy Mountain and Spider Cave. As Snowy Mountain's gondola is inactive when you first arrive, you're forced into the Spider Cave, a much darker area in contrast to the rest of the game so far, littered with pools of Dark Eco and old trivial Precursor structures. Oh, and spiders, which, fun fact, can actually be one-shot with an uppercut, just in case you didn't know. The wide open space of the entrance is home to many yellow eco vents for glorious insect extermination, and 2 paths that you can take through the cave, one leading to a Precursor robot actively being excavated from its rocky tomb, surrounded by wooden scaffolding, which you can either platform upwards to reach the power cell at the end, or jump from the floating platform at the end of the pole swinging section close by onto the top level. There's also a derelict bridge half sunken into Dark Eco, with a deactivated yellow eco vent sitting just opposite, whose mainframe resides in Snowy Mountain. Crossing this leads to a much faster exit back up to the previous floor, where you can access the other path, which will lead you to a mine submerged in complete darkness, with player-activated light crystals to make the immediate path actually visible. You'll also probably finish destroying all 5 Dark Eco crystals in this area too. Overall, Spider Cave is easily one of the most outstanding areas for both atmosphere and platforming, with a lot of tight jumps and obstacles. One thing I'd like to mention is the existence of the weirdest power cell in the game, that I do remember being mind blown about when I discovered it as a kid. It sits outside of Spider Cave in a metallic crate, and you have to race from a yellow eco vent to it with milliseconds to spare usually. Returning to the crater, you'll find that the gondola is now functioning and you can ascend to Snowy Mountain, which, as you can tell by the name, is a snowy mountain. Okay, no, in all seriousness, this place is nailed into my memory. Your first moments here will be made very special as a gentle Christmassy vibe assaults your ears. Oh, along with the appearance of frostbitten lurkers emerging from the snow too. You may wonder, how could it possibly get any worse than this? Well, say hello to the most terrifying enemy in any game ever, at least to child me. The Ice Spike enemy. A seemingly harmless entity from a distance, but get close enough and spikes will instantly burst from inside of it, as it begins to chase you at a terrifyingly high speed. That aside, Snowy Mountain is a place overtaken by lurker activity, made apparent from the active use of Precursor drills being used to uncover barrels of eco, as well as the enormous fortification planted in the center of the area, which is open through a mechanism upon completion of the Flood's platforming challenge. Close by, beneath the ice, is the source of all yellow eco vents inside of Spider Cave and Mountain Pass, reached by traversing through a bunch of shifting drills? I always found these things to be slightly suggestive, but either way, the environmental hint to what the location of the yellow eco mainframe is cool. Strange Precursor thingies aside, something that is still so impressive to me is that if you look directly downward past the gondola, you can see Volcanic Crater still rendered in its entirety, which I'll show here. Naughty Dog clearly were on some shit when they were making this game. Pure magic. By this point, you should have enough power cells to once again take the Zoomer across fiery plains, this time through Lava Tube, which leads straight to Gollum Citadel, and is a place that truly makes you feel like the end of the game is close. As compared to the more or less straight line that is Fire Canyon, Lava Tube brings higher stakes with your heat shield being more of a problem, shifting dark eco containers, and...
Bomb? You want it? My bomb?
But the best part of all of this are the narrow cooling tracks during the second half of the level. I always found it to be incredibly satisfying to traverse it perfectly, as plus your heat shield ceases to increase completely until you hit magma again. Enjoy the flames, the deep bass of this soundtrack, and almost steampunk-like design of this place whilst you can, because we're almost done here. So it's been quite the journey, short, however so sweet. Now you're at the entrance of Gollum Citadel and have no idea what to expect, with With the teleporter activated, Kira will tell you that Samos has been kidnapped. Okay, weird. It was hinted at that this would happen, but I always felt like I'd appreciate some context as to where and how this happens, and how they got this all-powerful man into his cage. The Precursor door opens up as you approach it, walking through a long hall of Precursor metal, blue lights and stray wires before you're greeted by the Green Sage himself. As he is quick to complain about you taking too long, Samos goes on to explain why the Sages were kidnapped, which was to power their salvaged Precursor robot, which you get a glimpse at during the cutscene here. And this thing has such a badass design. If you want to know how to design a robot, it's exactly like this. You can't help but feel excitement to fight this thing and end the game. Gollum Citadel is now free for you to stumble through, in any order you want to, as the pure sense of immensity of this place is thrown into your face, through the Citadel's ridiculously tall Precursor structures, all stemming from an endless black chasm, accompanied by a soundtrack of mechanical, strangely pitched sounds. 3 platforming challenges await you. Heading to the left center of the lower floor from the entrance platform is the section that will lead you to free the Blue Sage, which is a factory-type area within an enormous room of stone fortification. To make it to the other end and free the Blue Sage, tight platform-to-platform movement must be undertaken, where there is little room for mistake, as most of the room is a pitch-black abyss. So, don't slip. As expected, the Blue Sage is a bouncy, zappy ball of wholesomeness, which we find out as our heroes introduce themselves. The path leading to the Yellow Sage knocks up the whole Black Abyss thing up a notch, and consists of a bunch of scattered blue eco platforms, some static and some that move, so you actually have to think about your timing a little. Surrounding these platforms are Precursor pillars full of wires that tower far into the darkness below and above you. Whenever I'm here, I remember the weird and unsettling dreams I'd have because of the Citadel, and this place is a perfect example of what caused that. It's just so eerie. We find the Yellow Eco Sage to be full of life and ready to take revenge on his kidnappers, as well as having a taste for Odsal. Poor Daxter. Now for the daddy of all sages, the Red Sage, who is reached by platforming up a bunch of spinning pizzas and taking on a metric shit ton of lugger hoppers. Like Samos, he questioned as to what took us so long, but in his own calm demeanor, and is eager to assist his heroes in lowering the robot's shield. At long last, the final step is taken to the end of the game, and with all of the sages blasting their eco beams at the shield, a large set of Precursor platforms ascend from the darkness, giving you access to the ever-rotating structure of metal platforms situated around the robot. After spending years gradually moving up these things, you can free our boy, Samos, triggering a cutscene. Gollum will once again appear, where they exclaim with the limitless dark eco they'll gain from the silos, they'll have the key to creation itself, but are blind to their ignorance in reality. Having had enough of Samos's wisdom, they enter the robot through its eye and descend. Samos then leaves the destruction of this infinitely large robot up to you and your shoulder rat. Taking the oversized but very imposing elevator to the silos above, you'll be greeted with a deep, ominous purple sky, accompanied by an amazing soundtrack to let you know that this is it. This is the end of the game. Their Precursor robot floats nearby as its laser is attempting to open the dark eco silo. What a great sight. Once again, I'm going to give props to the visuals in this game because goddamn, there was nothing quite like this, especially in 2001. Once the levitating platform is taken down to the silo, the boss is idle until you blast open its eye with yellow eco. Each time it takes severe damage, a timed bomb will be released from its arm, which can be avoided very easily by using the nearby blue eco vent. Pure eco energy is shot into the partially open silo, which results in a bunch of mutated lurker-type creatures to come out of it and attack you. Following the first phase, what seem like condensed balls of red eco to symbolize power are then shot out of the robot's arm that explode in order, creating shockwaves that you should probably avoid, with good timing, as sometimes they overlap each other, easily killing you if you're not careful. This is repeated 2 to 3 times before you can finally destroy the arm. As a last hurrah of power, the Precursor robot initiates a hand cannon powered by yellow eco, firing enormous balls directly at you, which can easily catch you off guard if you're not prepared to roll jump away to predict the seemingly random intervals they're fired at correctly. The robot will let out one final roar before the 4 corners of the silo converge, each representing each specific eco type, to create light eco, a mythical and immensely powerful form of eco and an amalgamation of each one. Either way, Goll seems to know what it is as he exclaims light eco, it does exist, and is aware of its power. Daxter chooses to sacrifice the idea of ever being human again to save the world, where Jack will absorb a ball of light eco and completely fucking destroy the robot, causing the head to be launched into the sky and then to fall and submerge into the silo, which promptly closes, sealing them away, supposedly forever. Jack and Daxter return to the gang, dancing to their existence-threatening encounter. But rightfully so, I guess, with Samos actually admitting they do have what it takes to be heroes, as if he didn't already know. Daxter cockblocks Jack pretty hard. Roll the first set of credits. If every single power cell has been gathered, after everyone's victorious gathering and the credits have rolled, all of them somehow erupt from Jack's 10cm by 5cm backpack into this ancient precursor door, causing it to open and display a brilliant light. Yep, that's it, it's just some light, but it does set up the beginning of the first game's edgier older brother, with it being revealed that it's a mysterious precursor ring coupled with a vehicle, but we'll be getting to that at some point in the future, don't worry. At the beginning of this video I labelled this game as a unique gem, and I stand by those words. Jack 1 did so many things right, and it pushed boundaries, and in doing so it made itself one of the most memorable games in existence, at least to me. And I know Jack has gone somewhat under the radar these past 10 to 15 years, but I know it's still made its mark on people, and will continue to do so, and who knows, maybe there is a development company out there already working on a trilogy reboot or something of the sort, or if not, there might be one day. You'd be stupid not to realize that there is such great revival potential in this series, both for the games and the community itself. I can however confirm that there will be a sequel to this video covering Jack 2. But I'm usually very inconsistent with content, so maybe expect the next video around the later half of this year because I'm always caught up with life and stuff. If this video does well, there's no doubt there'd be a big increase in motivation for content creation. But for now, goodbye, take care, and stay good.